thought. Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to morning Bhagavatam class. This morning the class will be discussed on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 28. And we will start with the opening prayers. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jayo Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivacharya Stota to Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivacharya Stota to Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kundgiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Samavita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Ki Namani. Namaste Krishna Padaya Papajidatmani Sri Gaura Karna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namani. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ki Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaivam Narottamam Devam Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashta Prayeshta Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavita Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Hare Krishna. So as we mentioned that we will be studying from Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 28. I will chant the verse, and the chapter is entitled The Passing of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna. I will chant the verse 3 times, and I request devotees to please chant after me. Dharmartha kama moksham cha sahopayan yatamune nanakyaneti hasheshu varnayamasa tatvavit dharmartha kama moksham cha sayopayan yatamune nanakyaneti hasheshu varnayamasa tatvavit Dharmartar kama moksham cha sahopayan yatha mune nanakyaneti hasheshu varnayamasatat
Dharmata kama moksham cha sahopayan yatamune nana kyanetiha seshu varnayam asatattvavit. Hare Krishna.
Dharma artha kama mokshamsha sahopayan yatha mune nanakyaneti hasheshu varnayam as tattvavita.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to try?
Dharmartha kama mokshamscha sahopayan yatha mune nanakyaneti hasheshu varnayam ashatit tattvavit.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dharma artha kama moksha cha soya payan yatha muni nana kyaneti te ha seshu varna yamas tatvavita.
Thank you. So we'll do the word for word translation. Dharma, occupational duties. Artha, economic development. Kama, fulfillment of desires. Mokshan, ultimate salvation. Cha, end. Saha, along with. Upayan, means. Yatha, as it is. Mune, O sage. Nana, various. Akhyana, by recitation of historical narration. Itihaseshu, in the histories. Varnayam asha, described. Tat bhavit, one who knows the truth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. Purport. Incidents mentioned in the Vedic literatures, such as the Puranas, Mahabharata, and Ramayana, are factual historical narrations that took place sometime in the past, although not in any chronological order. Such historical facts, being instructive for ordinary men, were assorted without chronological reference. Besides that, they happen on different planets, nay, in different universes. And thus the description of the narrations is sometimes measured by 3 dimensions. We are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of such incidents, even though they are not in order of our limited range of understanding. Bhishma Dev described such narrations before Maharaj Yudhishthira in reply to his different questions. Om Maganyatingarandya Sagyana Ganashalakaya Chakshur Onmritam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the translation. Thus, then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. As I was preparing for this class, one sentence that really stood out for me, very simply, that is the second last sentence, the first half of the second last sentence. We are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of such incidents. And if we see the purport, the beginning of the purport, Srila Prabhupada said, such historical facts being instructive for ordinary men. And that's what we are. We are just ordinary men. Sometimes we want to make ourselves more than ordinary. We want to make ourselves more than, we want to make ourselves very puffed up or very, I'm this, more than ordinary, more than great. We want to make ourselves powerful. We want to make ourselves so scholarly. We want to make ourselves, so great that we are so caught up in the chronological historical facts. We get so caught up in it. There's nothing wrong in being caught up in the historical chronological facts, but when we get so caught up in it, we become jnanis. We just become what they call book smart. We just become philosophers. We are so caught up in, this one happened, then this one happened, then his one happened. We get so caught up in that we lose the essence of Krishna consciousness. We lose the beauty, the sweetness of Krishna consciousness. We really lose the meaning of what it is what is the lesson behind what we are reading. We are so caught up in this happened and then this happened and all the facts, so caught up in all the facts of historical chronological references that we forget, but what is the lesson in there for me? What is there for me to learn? Because we want to be greater than the ordinary men. We want to be more powerful than the ordinary men. But here Srila Prabhupada says, this is an instruction for ordinary men, and that's what we are. We are simply ordinary people. We are nothing more than that. Because if we're anything more than that, why are we in this crazy material world? Why are we caught up in this, age of Kali, age of quarrel? Why are we caught up in so much madness? Because we're ordinary men trying to get out of this cycle of birth and death. So we should not be caught up in so much, I guess this happened, then this happened, then this happened, because we lose the lesson. And Srila Prabhupada says, we are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of such incidents, even though they are not in order by our limited range of understanding. Very, very simple. Prabhupada makes it so simple for us, but because we want to be greater than the ordinary men, because we want to be greater than the powerful men, then we make it complicated. But Srila Prabhupada always says, simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated. But he says, we are just ordinary men. We are just simply concerned with the instructive lessons of these incidents. In Bhagavad-Gita chapter 4, verse 1, Krishna says, I instructed the imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivaswami. And Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ishvaku. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, and this is from Srila Prabhupada's lecture, Prabhupada says, if we calculate the age of Manu, we can understand that Krishna spoke the philosophy of the Bhagavad-Gita to the sun god at least 40 million years ago, Prabhupada. I don't know about all of you, but it's beyond my conception. I can't even imagine. Like, I don't want to go that far. I can't even go back 40 years, let alone 40 million years ago, right? And the name of the predominating deity in the sun planet is Vivaswan, and his son is Vaivasvata Manu. And Manu's son is Ishvaku, and is the original person in the dynasty of the Surya Vamsa in which Lord Ramachandra appeared. So Srila Prabhupada is saying this Krishna consciousness movement is coming from that far, 40 million years ago. Krishna instructed the sun god 40 million years ago, Srila Prabhupada. And then at some point, right, we don't know, at least I don't know the historical, chronological facts, but at some point, the Raja Rishis, the saintly kings, used to receive this instruction to the chain of disciplic succession. That was the way of understanding the Bhagavad-Gita. And 5,000 years ago, this one we know, is when Krishna was talking with Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna was perplexed whether to fight or not. And just to inspire and instruct and guide Arjuna, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-Gita, and he said, the parampara system of the disciplic succession is not broken. So therefore, I'm speaking to you so that people may learn from you the purport of this philosophy, Krishna consciousness. So 5,000 years ago, this philosophy was spoken to Arjuna by none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we still have access to Krishna's instruction. And unfortunately, over time, again, it got distorted. Now we know that there are so many kinds of Bhagavad-Gita. I remember, and I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, whenever I prepare a class or do research or reading on Google, our famous Google, I always end my search with ISKCON. Because if I do not do that, then I will get all kinds of results from all kinds of, everywhere. Because there are so many Bhagavad Gita out there that has been distorted. So one time I forgot to add the word ISKCON, and I got one of the results was a Bhagavad Gita. And I looked at the verse, and somehow it didn't seem quite right. I don't remember the sentence or the verse, but it didn't seem quite right. So I pulled up Vedabase and I looked up that verse to compare it. And boy, the last sentence, half of it was completely distorted. If anything, it was watered down so much that at least I could see that the verse was watered down to the point where it's written for someone, that someone wrote it to satisfy what he can accept. It's been distorted. Because why? We did not receive it to the parampara system. Instead, we make our own translation and purport and what have you, and then it gets again distorted. It gets very distorted. So again, 540 something years ago, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Now, if we think about the mercy of Krishna, always trying to find some way or the other to give us his instruction, right? 40 million years ago, he gave it to the sun god. It came down, it got broken. Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. gave it to Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra. Supposed to go to the disciplic succession. And again, it got broken down and distorted. And Lord Chaitanya appeared 540 something years ago. And we know in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says, when there is, when religion falls, when it goes down, and when it gets watered down, I will appear. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Radha Krishna himself. He appeared 540 something years ago to teach us the Bhagavad-Gita as a devotee. He instructed as the order-giving master, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. The famous Bhagavad-Gita 1866. Sarva dharmam parityajya mamekam saranam vraj. Very, very common verse. But people misunderstood. So therefore, this time again, Lord Chaitanya appeared. Krishna himself. But this time, he appeared as a devotee, right? 5,000 years ago, he appeared as a cowherd boy. He was born in Mathura, moved to Gokul, right? And came back to Mathura, and he was the prince and the king, and he was kingly. But this time, Lord Chaitanya appeared as a devotee of the Lord. Why did he appear? Because he saw that the teachings of Krishna has been watered down. His instructions has been watered down. It has been changed. It has been distorted. And because of that, everyone was in great perplexity. Anyone in this material world, everyone was in full anxiety and perplexity. So it is not only Arjuna's problem. Sometimes we look at and we read and we hear and we study the Bhagavad-Gita and we say, my God, Arjuna was really confused. So are we, right? 700 verses. Krishna giving instructions to Arjuna, 700 verses. All about perplexity and anxiety and doubt and confusion and what have you, right? And then we say, oh my God, Krishna, Arjuna, you are really messed up. But look at the world today. We are also messed up. I remember my spiritual master, one time he gave a class and he says that, when we go to the hospital or to a clinic or doctor's office, we see so many people sick, right? And we say, my God, there's so many sick people. And then he says, why am I here? Because I'm also sick. We forget, why are we in the hospital? Right? Why am I here among sick people? Because I'm also sick. That's why I'm here. That's why I need a doctor, because everybody's sick. So I'm here, but that's, sometimes we see the waiting room full of people whenever it's flu season or fever season or whatever season, right? The waiting room of the doctor's office is like full, packed, long line. And we're there, we're like, oh my God, there's no place to sit. Why are so many people sick? Well, I'm also sick. That's why I'm here. So whenever we read the Bhagavad-Gita and we learn and study Arjuna's perplexity and anxiety and doubts and what have you, we have to put ourselves in that shoe and say, I'm also just as confused as Arjuna is. I'm no better, right? We are also full of problems. And the anxiety, the perplexity, the confusion, everything is everybody's problem. And if we want to solve these problems of life, Sri Prabhupada says, we should accept Krishna as a supreme teacher. But it's difficult because there is this familiarity breeds contempt. Like I've heard people tell me, oh, I was born in this family, I was born in that family, I grew up worshiping Krishna, I grew up worshiping Ram, so and so forth and all this. Yeah, I know. That's the familiarity. Very, very dangerous. I remember Balabhadra Prabhu, I believe he gave a class about 3-4 weeks ago where he says, Once we become very familiar with Krishna, it is very dangerous for one's spiritual life. Very, very dangerous. Because we will take Krishna for granted. He's there. He must give me. He's there. I've been worshiping him for so many years. He must reciprocate. The familiarity is very dangerous for spiritual life. So in Bhagavad-Gita chapter 2 verse 7, Arjuna says to Krishna, my dear Krishna, now I'm asking you to become my teacher and solve my problem. Have we come to that stage? Say, Krishna, I am such a mess. I am such confused state. I am really a messed up person. Please, I'm asking you, become my teacher and solve my problem. You know, when we use a very simple example in life, you know, especially in school, right? Whenever we try to solve a problem, a mathematical problem on our own, I know for me, there were times in my, school life that, and one subject that I really struggled and hated till this very day, because I don't understand is physics. Never could make sense of it. And I always try to find an easy way to learn it, but it just didn't make sense. And I remember when this was back in my country, in Malaysia, when I was in high school, I was having a lot of problems and my mother had to get me a tutor. Back home, they have a concept called tuition, yes. And she got me a physics teacher to be my tuition teacher to help me learn physics. And I remember the first class I had with him. It was such difficulty, such blocks in my mind that I remember telling him, I said, I don't understand. Please help me to solve this problem, no matter how difficult it is. And I remember he had to really explain one simple concept that wasn't going into my head for 1 hour. And he took the time to go through step by step. And so because I'm a very visual learner, and he had to connect the dots for me. So we have to come to that stage and say, I cannot do this. Become my teacher and solve my problem. So if we want to stop this repetitive birth and death, we should take the instructions from Krishna. Try to understand Krishna. And how do we understand Krishna? By reading the Bhagavad-Gita. But not easy. As Kali Yuga is progressing, our minds are not like the minds of Arjuna, in the sense that Arjuna, this is 5,000 years ago, we're talking about. Whatever Krishna told Arjuna, he got it. That whole time at the battle of Kurukshetra, he got the instruction from Krishna all in one go, he got it. As Kali Yuga is progressing, our minds are more messed up. Forgetfulness increases. Memory goes down, unfortunately, because we are bombarded with so much nonsense out there that distracts our attention and puts a lot of crap in our minds, a lot of nonsense that we cannot hear the Bhagavad Gita just one time and say, oh, my life is successful. We cannot put ourselves at the stage of Arjuna, where Arjuna just heard one time and he was fine. We need help. So as life is getting more and more crazy, as Kali Yuga is progressing, we have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, of a devotee of the Lord, to help us understand how to make our lives successful. So the whole instruction of how to make our lives successful is in the Bhagavad Gita. Very simple. We should always remember that to become a devotee of the Lord is not an easy task. Sometimes we think, oh, I'll just read and now that it's COVID, it's such a, I was talking to one devotee last week that we use the excuse COVID so loosely, actually not lazily is the right word. We use COVID as an excuse so lazily that we are not even aware that how lazy we are. I cannot come to the temple, Mataji, because of COVID. But they will go to the grocery store. We will go to a birthday party. We will go to someone's house for kirtan program. We'll go to, wherever. We'll travel to anywhere. We'll fly on the plane. We'll go sit in the airport. I mean, we do everything but temple or Mataji COVID. The safest place to be is in the holy place of the Lord, not in Sam's Club or any grocery store. The safest place to be is with the devotees of the Lord. And especially in this time, I remember when, in 1999, when Y2K was such a big thing. And I mean, the whole world was consumed with this Y2K, 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 because there was a lot of confusion and prophecies and what have you. Oh, when the year turned 2000, everything is going to crash. Computers are going to crash. This is going to crash. That's going to crash. All things, whatever's going to crash, right? And I remember that at the time when we were living in Gitanagri, and every year my spiritual master would have a very auspicious spiritual New Year's Eve program. Very, very sweet. And we all loved it. But in 1999 especially, not knowing what's going to happen with the Y2K, because, the very next day was January 1st, 2000. Every devotee in Gitanagri, we made sure that we were in the temple room with all the devotees on December 31st, 1999. Not in our homes. We were there we were there the whole day, December 31st, the whole day, up until the next morning, till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Because our spiritual master said, you want to be with the devotees when the world is going down, not on your own. You want to be with the devotees who can remind you of the Lord, who can remind us to chant, who can remind us to read, who can remind us the importance of sadhu sangha, who can remind us what it means to be at the lotus feet of the Lord, with the devotees at Prophet's feet when times are tough. But what happens is that we become so lazy because of COVID. We say, oh, because of COVID, I'm not coming to the temple. No, that's an excuse. It's laziness. It's laziness. So if we are lazy, it's very difficult to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. It's very difficult to follow instructions. It's very, very difficult to follow. And so the $1 million question is, so let me go back. So if we look at the life of Dhruva Maharaj, right? He was 5 years old. That was a whole pastime of the Lord. But at the age of 5, he went to search for Lord Vishnu. He went through austerities. We can't even do. During COVID, we cannot take one austerity, but sitting in our homes and saying, oh, because of COVID, I'm going to sit home and do my own chanting and do my own reading and do my own whatever. Dhruva Maharaj at the age of 5 went through so much austerity. He went to search for the Lord. Without food and water, he searched for the Lord. Can we do that? So because his endeavor, his surrender, that's the key word. Because Dhruva Maharaj was so surrendered, he went through so much austerity, no matter how much he was struggling. He never gave up. He never gave up. And the Lord bent and I gave him the benediction, right? And he saw Lord Vishnu. He saw the Lord because he was surrendered. He went searching for the Lord. And this is the lesson. That is what your prophet meant by the purport, right? In the purport, he clearly stated such historical facts being instructive for ordinary men were assorted without chronological references. We are ordinary people. We are not some Paramahamsa and some Acharya, at least I'm not, some great devotee, some great philosopher. No, we are just simple, ordinary men. We have to, rather than trying to think, why this one happened and when did this one happen and what is the chronological step? Forget that. Prabhupada is helping us to learn what is the lesson in it for me. So Sri Prabhupada, we are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of the incident. What is the instruction for me from this lesson? What is the instruction for me? So the $1 million question that anyone would ask generally is how to follow instructions. The Prabhupada says, to follow instruction, one must surrender. One must surrender. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he surrendered at the age of 5. He surrendered and roamed through the woods and the forest and the jungles in search of Lord Krishna. He didn't care whether he ate or didn't eat or drink. His clothes were torn. His feet was blistered. He did not care. He wanted to see the Lord. He was surrendered. Are we surrendered to follow the instructions? He took the instruction of his stepmother, who didn't like him, but he took it to heart, said, oh, let me go find the Lord. He was surrendered. The main purpose of our life is to follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because of our conditioning, our anarthas, our ego, our stubbornness, our laziness, we fail to understand and follow Krishna's instructions. We fail to understand and follow the instructions. And because we fail to understand, again, what did the Lord do? He sends his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. Right? Krishna gave the knowledge to the sun god over a period of time that got broken down. Then 5,000 years ago, he gave it to to Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra over a period of time that got distorted. Then Lord Chaitanya appeared 40 something years ago, and he was none other than Krishna himself. And over time, now we find it's so difficult to follow because Kali Yuga is progressing. It's getting worse. And the worse that it gets, we become more conditioned. There's more anarthas, there's more laziness, there's more excuses, there's more everything. So, okay, I'll send you my ambassador, Srila Prabhupada. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have so many initiating gurus in ISKCON now. Initiating gurus and instructing mentors to guide us on the path of Krishna consciousness simply by following and surrendering to the instructions. Simply by following and surrendering to the instructions. And if we fail to follow the instructions, if we fail to surrender to follow to the instructions, we go off track. Just like Balabhadra Prabhu was mentioning in class on Tuesday, right? We get eaten by the crocodiles. Because when we go off track, it means deviation. Anything in life, we need guidance. If we do not have the guidance, we go off track. We get deviated. Because we cannot do it on our own. Like if we think about our school life, our college life, we had to stay on track to get an A. If we do not stay on track, we fail. We get deviated. And why did we fail in our school? Because we got deviated. We got lazy. Homework. I'll do the homework next time. I'm already getting A's. If I skip this one homework, it's not going to hurt so much. Yeah. Then it becomes a habit of skipping homework. Next thing you know, we got an F. Because we deviated. right? We deviate. So if we want to stay on track, we have to follow the instructions. How do I complete my homework? How do I study my homework? How do I get an A in my class? How do I, pay attention in class so that I can understand the material and pass my course and not get deviated? The same thing applies in Krishna consciousness. Same thing applies in spiritual life. Going off track, not following instructions, not surrendering means deviation. And we all need guidance in life. And if we want to succeed in our spiritual life, we have to follow the instructions of our senior devotees and the spiritual master. I've heard people come and tell me, I really want to succeed in my material life. I'm going to listen to this speaker, that speaker. And there are a lot of speakers out there. There are a lot of motivational speakers out there on any subject you want: how to make money, how to become rich, how to become this, how to become that, all kinds of stuff. And we, with dedication, right, we follow the instructions of these successful people out in the material world. And why do we do that? Because we want to succeed in our material life. If we can just take a drop of that determination and commitment and perseverance in our spiritual life, wow, I think we'll reach the skies. Just a drop of that determination. Because when we take a drop of the determination and apply it in our spiritual life, it will become a habit, and the drop will turn into 1 tablespoon, and then it'll turn to 1 cup, and then it'll turn to 1 gallon. And the more we add, the more we give our determination, our commitment, our perseverance, whatever you want to call it, towards our spiritual life, we would reach the skies. I remember Bhakti Swami said that Srila Prabhupada told him, you have been here so many lifetimes. You have made it so many times in a material life. You have been successful in your material life. And you have followed everything very well to make it very well in material life. Just give this one life to Krishna with its full determination. Amazing instruction Prabhupada gave Bhakti Swami. So we have tried so many things to make our material life successful by following the exact instructions given by the material successful people. Why not apply the same determination for our spiritual life? The simple instructions that we have gotten from Krishna, from our senior devotees, from our spiritual masters, the hearing, chanting, reading, sadhu sangha, the 4 regular principles, how to improve the quality of our chanting, how to improve the quality of our reading, how to treat devotees, Vaishnava etiquette, how to not offend devotees, Vaishnava aparad, how to develop Vaishnava qualities. The list goes on. How many instructions we have? The question is, do we want to become a better person so that we can go back to Krishna and make our life successful? When we get instructions, when we hear pastimes, they are not fairy tales like, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast. They are not fairy tales. These are real. It really happened. It's not a fable. It's not a myth. It's not, make-up story. It's not a novel. It's real. And anything that happens real, that's a lesson. Prophet says in the purport, instructive lesson. So if Dhruva Maharaj, being 5 years old, can go out into the woods. Now, he wasn't in woods and forest. There are lots of, animals out there, jungle animals, ferocious, I mean, man-eating animals, and the snakes, you name it. He wanted to search the Lord. He wanted to see Krishna. And here, some of us still stuck in our homes, and the excuse we give is COVID. No, it's laziness. We can, next thing you know, we will start saying, oh, I can get initiated online. Oh, I can get married online. Oh, I can just have a complete laziness. This is how Maya gets to us. Maya is giving us like excuses to be lazy. Maya is giving us excuses to not increase our hearing. Maya is giving us opportunity to say, no, you don't need to go to have sadhu sangha. Why? Waste of time. Just sit home. It's COVID outside. Sit home. No, we don't need to do that. Oh, why you want to drive 25, 35, 45, 1 hour to go to the temple? It's like, it's COVID. Oh yeah, it's COVID. Good excuse. Laziness. Krishna is not cheap. Prabhupada said, Krishna is not cheap. And I remember reading a transcription lecture by Srila Prabhupada. It says, Krishna is not cheap. And I also remember reading a very nice response from Srila Prabhupada when one of his disciples asked him, Srila Prabhupada, many people come to the temple, some stay and some leave. And then I think his name is Amoga Leela Das, if not mistaken, Prabhupada disciple. And he asked Prabhupada, why do people leave? Prabhupada says, because they have misused their free will. We have a free will and we are misusing it for our benefit, for our selfish benefit. Prabhupada said, because we are misusing our free will. And now, I mean, not only here, I see it in many, many places. I see it in many, many places. We are misusing our free will in the name of laziness. But time is short. Time is very, very short. And we have to really take shelter of devotees who have exemplified these qualities of taking the opportunity of Krishna consciousness as an urgency. Urgency. Because what appears out there to be, oh, everything is okay, next thing you know, the rug will be pulled under you and we don't know what's going to happen to us. We have to take our spiritual life very seriously. And we have to, when we hear Bhagavatam, when we hear Bhagavad-Gita, we have to see and ask ourselves, what instruction is in this for me? What lesson can I find in this instruction point? Because every instruction we get, everything we hear, there is a lesson for us. We can never say there is no lesson. There is a lesson for us. And Srila Prabhupada so nicely says that we are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of these. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my thoughts and my realizations and my reflections. And I hope that I can also learn lessons from these instructions that we are hearing from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gita. The translation again, then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions, any comments, any takeaways, would really like to hear from devotees, like a discussion about what are their thoughts on instructive lessons. Would like to hear your feedback, and so that I can also learn from what you were told. Hare Krishna, Mother Gita.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances.
Accept my mother.
Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Explaining it so nicely about instructive, and Srila Prabhupada has given us everything that we need, all his instructions. I Had a question about Monday. You took verse 28. I thought for Monday was 30.
You know, Mother, because what happened was Chandramani Swami gave a class yesterday on Ramanujacharya, so we had to go back one verse. And I was going to email you that today, so I'm glad you asked me, Mother.
Okay, because I've already prepared for 30. So,
Oops.
so is it okay if I read 29 and 30 and speak on 30?
Yes,
Okay.
Mother. Please, please, please. Absolutely.
Okay,
Please.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mother.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dear Krishna said, do not be surprised about how many left. Be surprised how many are still there. So true, dear Krishna. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Because this science of Krishna consciousness is definitely a science in itself. Yes. Thank you. Any comments, any takeaways? Please, you can just jump right in and share your thoughts.
Why does Prabhupada make that statement? Be surprised at those who would staying rather than leaving. Can you share?
From my little understanding, that going back to the instruction that he gave a Mogalila Prabhu, is those that are willing to use their free will in service to Krishna, they stay. But when they misuse their free will, then they leave. That is my understanding. Because the science of Krishna consciousness is very instructive. It's a lesson. It requires a lot of surrender, following instructions, following orders. It's interesting that you asked it, because yesterday when I was preparing for this class, I was reading different conversations between Srila Prabhupada with his disciples, giving very strict instructions. I said you shouldn't do that. It's not good for you. So you should come here. Like really strong instructions. You know, you can't stay with this person. You got to stay with this person. This person is going to help you. Very strong instructions. And also, I've also read a few conversations where he said, you know, I gave him this instruction. He was not willing to listen. So he's left, may come back and take up again. Because when we do not follow instructions, we deviate. And I think that is my understanding of why Srila Prabhupada says, you know, do not be surprised of how many left, but how many will stay, because those that stay are the ones who are very surrendered to the process of Krishna consciousness and are willing to work on themselves, willing to become surrendered servants to the devotees of the Lord and use whatever they have in their free will in service to Krishna. But those that don't stay is because they haven't learned to use their free will of Krishna in Krishna's service. That's what's coming to my mind, but I really want to hear from you and Mother Gita, your thoughts on that.
You said it all.
Mother, you're so kind, Mother.
Hare Krishna, is it possible that the extent to which, especially new people, when they come and they don't stay that long and leave, that maybe the fact that they have to give up so much sense gratification, what they used to enjoy is termed sense gratification to us. And Bhagavatam says we should, no, don't make plans for sense gratification. We should detest sense gratification. But materialists call that happiness. And people come and then they realize that things that they used to enjoy doing, that's our regulated principles. Don't do those things. Can that be part of the reason why they decide to go?
I remember there was one devotee, actually one of our god brothers, that had that challenge. This was, I want to say, probably in the early 2000, I think is what it was. And this was in Kirtanagari. And one of his challenges was one of the principles. He got initiation, actually, but he couldn't hang in there. And he left after 2 years because his wife was not a devotee and he was devotee. And one of the challenge was one of the principles. And I remember going to a spiritual master, and he said because he couldn't do with the principles and he wasn't strong enough in his Krishna consciousness to want to surrender and help his spouse. So therefore he couldn't hang in there, but he got the mercy. So where he left off, when he comes back, he'll pick up from where he left off. And I think also what happens is that when we do not when we do not present the knowledge in a way, when we do not present the knowledge of Krishna consciousness in a way that is not downer, where it's something positive, and they get the full understanding of why we have the principles, why we have the 4 regular principles, how is it benefiting us, and how we can become a better person. I think that is what's lacking, and probably when they hear that, some may choose to say and some would say no, and that's okay. Because I think it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I think, of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, if I can save one soul, I've done it. So because it's saving one person is such a difficult task. So now that we have so many devotees compared to the world's population, is just miraculous. If we were to put quote unquote weighed against Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, I'm sorry, I think it was Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj that said that, that if I can save one person, I've done it. So it's also a mercy factor, that have they gotten the mercy to really understand the knowledge, the instruction, how it's going to benefit them, how it's going to make them a better person, how it's going to make them use themselves for Krishna's service. It's where they are at. That's what's coming to my mind. But I really would like to hear from you and Mother Gita what you both have to say. Mother Gita, can you shed some light, Mother, on this?
From my personal experience and also what I've heard, we try our hard. Of course, it takes a few years of cultivation before someone is really serious about Krishna consciousness, and we do our part, and then it's up to the individual, what is their choice, whether they want to continue or they want to leave. We try and give as much as we can as far as association and knowledge, etc. is concerned. So I had also asked this question, because quite a few tend to, give up Krishna consciousness, as Parikshit Prabhu was saying, probably because of sense gratification. They, like someone had told me that coming to Krishna consciousness, it's not such a good idea because I have to give up eating pizza, I have to give up sex life, I have to give up movies, things like that. So these kind of things go on in the minds of those who are trying to take Krishna consciousness. But then Krishna says, Manushyaram sahasreshu kaschid yatati se, out of thousands, it's not hundreds or few, out of thousands, only one will try for perfection. So if we are preaching to 1,000, it's not surprising if 999 don't take up. So like Prabhupada says, you will find many people to go to the store to buy potatoes, but you'll hardly find anyone going to buy diamonds because it's expensive. It's rare.
That was really nice, Mother Gita, especially the last part of it. Yeah, so true. Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Again, some thoughts are coming to mind about this. I remember one time, just in the early 90s, I just come to Krishna consciousness. And in the summertime in Washington, D.C., Bhaktivedanta Maharaj asked all of us to go out to a park in Washington, D.C. And he was there himself. And I was very new, Bhakta. And in the park, the Woodies brought a cloth that, and laid it on the grass so he could sit. And then one by one, we went to talk with him. And I remember when I went to talk with him, there were some games that we played. They just basically had some fun in the park. But when I talked to him, first of all, I expressed to him, Maharaj, the weather is so nice today. It's not so humid, and the temperatures in the 70s, very nice. He says, yeah, it seems like very good weather here, but you can enjoy it here. It feels like most people are in good mood because of the weather when it gets like that. But then he reminded me, there's another place. It's a spiritual world. This is so much better, several times better than what you see, and there's no suffering at all. So the reason I brought it up is maybe we don't think too much about the spiritual world. We think more about what we need to do to be a better devotee. But the destination, after we leave the body and the soul leaves the body, if we actually are successful in Krishna consciousness or we put in the effort, there's all these wonderful pastimes that we get to join Krishna and Krishna's devotees who are pure in the spiritual world for. Sometimes, if I'm just thinking, people who are in the sense gratification, if they know that there's some wonderful, situation waiting for them just by staying in Krishna consciousness, then maybe that would also be a motivation for them to keep at it and keep going at it. But there's more, actually. Krishna also, if we take things seriously here, Krishna also gives us internal happiness. Krishna sweetens Krishna consciousness to the point where then things that happen here in this material world that are difficult, we're able to detach from it. It doesn't bother us very much. That's the initial one that we get here. But the spiritual world, many books, when they describe the way it is like, it is phenomenal. And I don't know whether we don't do much of telling people what is waiting for them. That's the point we're trying to make here. Maybe to excite them to, okay, yeah, I'd like to go there. People want to go to Disney World. Why? Because the things that are said about the Disney World and the fun that they're going to have. But the spiritual world is the ultimate place for service and fun. That's just the only thing that's coming to my mind too. Maybe we don't talk about the spiritual world much. Hare Krishna.
That's a good point you made, because as you were speaking, I was also thinking, again, this might be I don't know, but I was thinking that I don't know if everyone can relate to the spiritual the way Bhaktivedanta Swami told you. Probably it's a case-by-case basis. Probably he just knew that you would get excited, but it may not excite another person depending on where they are at. I'm just throwing that out because one is the guru knows, that's one, but I'm just thinking because but that's what's coming to my mind. I don't know if everyone would have the same excitement like you did, probably because he knew that you would, because probably you were tired of the crazy world. But how many people are tired of the crazy world? That's what I'm thinking. And can everybody across the board be appreciated the way you did?
Well, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj has said that every spiritual master is a spiritual doctor. And we are in various levels of, discomfort, disease. So yes, the spiritual master does know what to say, or Krishna will feed the right information to the spiritual master so that when they tell the disciple, then the disciple can get more excited or more enthused about Krishna consciousness. That's there. So that's a possible answer. Yeah, but what you said, that maybe he knew that if he said it like that, that I was more excited. So it's possible. But still, the spiritual world is there for everyone. For everyone. And so we can, in fact, not just me only, but if you hear about the things that are there, it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting.
As I'll come to you in 1 minute, there, Krishna. I remember that as you're speaking that there was one instruction that Bhaktivedanta Swami gave me, and it just took literally one phone call and 2 minutes, and I said, okay, I'm not questioning. And I remember him saying that, you know, that there was another incident with one other devotee that he gave an instruction and they couldn't take it. And of course, they didn't last. And there were others that took it without questioning. And like you said, it's where they are at, because I've seen gurus give instructions to some and they take it without thinking twice. Like, fine, guru say I'm doing it. And there are some that have a challenging time and then they don't last so much. You know, dear Krishna Prabhu, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Maharaj, that's perfect. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai.
Yep, Prabhuji brought a very excellent point. Like, if people we knew that how good it is in the spiritual world, he gave a very practical example of Disney World. You know, because people know what to expect there, and they also go there and experience that there. But at the same time, I think it may be coming down to because people are not conditioned to know about spiritual life. Like, for example, in USA or Western countries, kids from childhood, they are aware how fun it will be in Disney World. They're getting that experience. So they're conditioned to, they're conditioned to think that Disney World is going to be fun. I don't know if I'm able to explain it, but it's the conditioning from the childhood itself, that what to expect, what is the meaning of fun. This is what the fun is, you know, things like that. So that's why I think Prahlad Maharaj says that the training should get started in the childhood, that what is the real fun. So that knowledge is not there, that concept is not there about spiritual world. Because I think that is a wonderful point, that if people knew how blissful and how pleasurable it will be in the spiritual world, then there is no way they won't take it up. Another aspect of it could be how can we provide that experience to everyone in the temples, because that's where they can get a kind of promotion for that, the glimpse of that spiritual world. You know, not an easy task, we all know, because all sorts of people come, they have their own conditioning, everybody is looking for something different initially. So just wanted to throw that out. I mean, it's a very good point for discussion.
And yes, it is a very good point, because the thing is, like as you mentioned with temples, because you know, Prabhupada has said many times, you know, Vrindavan is not only Vrindavan, India. You know, he said that if you make your temples in Vrindavan, that is the spiritual world. So if they can get a glimpse, yes, you know, because he said all temples where the Lord is worshipped, that is Vrindavan, and that is our spiritual world, you know, and that and when we give that, like you said, that setting, that understanding that the temples is your spiritual world, and this is how we behave, and this is how it's like, then they will want to come more, and then to get that taste. Yes, Mother Gita. It's a wonderful, I love this discussion. Yes, please, Mother Gita.
Yes, also, we have been taught that we should set good examples because actions speak louder than words. So if we behave properly, the others get attracted to Krishna consciousness, you know, so it's not just preaching and giving knowledge, but we need to practice it too.
That's a really good point, Mother, because, you know, using Balabhadra Prabhu's comment, you know, and I think is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, example is better than precept. I think is what he says. But yeah, it's so true, because going back to Praksha Prabhu's point about the spiritual world, because in order for us to fit in, quote unquote, into the mood of the spiritual world, this is our practice ground. How we treat devotees, how we respect devotees, how we take instructions, how we take guidance, how we serve, how we do service, blah, blah, everything. This is our practice ground, so that we understand that this is what it means, so that when we go back, we know how to behave properly, like you said, Mother, to be the example and to be servant in das anudas. Yes, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful discussion. I like to hear from devotees, so I also learn. Thank you for bringing up this wonderful point of the spiritual world and how we can all get a taste of it. Any other points or questions? You can add to it if you want, or if there isn't, but just would like to give devotees the opportunity. But this has been very, very nice, how we can all share the glories of the Lord and his devotees and the spiritual with others, so that they can also become attracted. So nice. If there's no questions, I want to thank you all so much for joining the class. Vanchakraptubhyascha kripasundavevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And just a reminder that this evening, we will have our Bhagavad-Gita circle at 6 o'clock. So do mark your calendars, and we will hear more of Bhagavad-Gita this evening. Have a wonderful day, and see you all this evening. Hare Krishna.